Hello and welcome to Visiting Dugout, a Fans First Sports Network production. I am Crystal O'Keefe, and today I have Thomas on to chat about the Astros. Thomas, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Thomas Chavaria. I do a pod with the original sidekick for you today, Susie. We do Bourbon Baseball. We cover the Houston Astros, and I'm delighted to talk the White Sox with you. I think it's going to be an interesting series. I feel like these teams at the end of the season that turn and kind of like prepare for the following season, they're the most dangerous because they really have nothing to lose.
Yeah, yes, for sure. That was actually, I was going to ask you what's new with the Astros first, but you bring up a good point. The Astros were written off really early this season because they had a bad start. You guys had José Abreu, who was just not the José Abreu that White Sox fans knew. He was just terrible. And, he's no longer there. He's been DFA'd. But what happened from, the start of the season until now where you're sitting in first place in the AL West?
Well, for all the White Sox people, I loved Jose Abreu. I rode for him hard. I really thought that eventually that dude that was an absolute monster and MVP for you guys would appear. And there was flashes, last season towards the end. And I mean, I think if he doesn't get hurt in spring training and it really just kind of slowed him down, we probably have a different scenario. He's probably manning first base. I thought that there was a scenario where he could get right. It just never came to be. As far as the Astros in large, there was a multitude of injuries that happened. When you look at what they have on the injured list for the foreseeable future, they've got almost a whole starting rotation that's injured. A lot of guys that weren't expected to log heavy innings in the rotation had to do some things for us. We had some young guys step up. And then turn around and get traded. The offense didn't necessarily click on all cylinders. Alex Bregman is probably one of the hottest hitters in baseball right now. And if you saw him at the beginning of the season, you'd have thought that was a totally different person. So when you have that guy that's so key in the middle of your lineup, being able to produce and drive in runs, not doing it, you lose a lot of games that you probably should win. They lost some games due to a multitude of things, whether it be bullpen issues, which they had those two, and now they've kind of righted that ship. So there's just so many things that I could lean on as to why the Astros weren't the Astros that were, one game away from a World Series the year prior. But as we're kind of seeing now, they found their stride. They definitely have had a surge towards the end of the first half of the season and then into the second half after the All-Star break. And now people are talking about the Astros, about that team again. And it's a fun time to be an Astros fan.
Yeah, for sure. And I've said this before on here. I thought the Mariners, not that they're bad, not that they're actual frauds, but I thought this entire time, like there's no reason the Mariners should have been in first for as long as they were, because on paper the team isn't set to be as good. I mean, Julio Rodriguez was having just an abysmal season, and when that's kind of your main guy, you should not be in first. That league is not an easy one to really get through. So yeah, it was wild to me that the Astros were being written off so early. And as someone who supposed to hate the Astros, no offense, you're supposed to be like our rivals. There's 2005 for a reason. It just blew my mind that they had started off so rough, and I was like, there's just no way that it's gonna stick. These are the Astros. Even as much as you want to hate them, they're still gonna be good. So it was so wild to just see so many people saying, oh, they're done, their luck is run out. I'm like, okay, well, let's get to July and reassess this. And that's exactly what happened. So what else is new in Houston?
Well, I mean, the big thing that everybody's talking about right now, because the Astros are in such a groove and they're hoping to build on that momentum, is the health of Justin Verlander and Kyle Tucker. These are two guys that are absolute all-stars, absolute studs. Verlander is going to be a Hall of Famer. Tucker, the jury's still out, but so far, I would say he's on that right trajectory. So if the Astros can get those guys back as well as they've been, they can be better. So Verlander recently did a minor league rehab start in Sugarland, which is our AAA minor league affiliate, which is literally 10 minutes up the street from me, which is actually 30 minutes from Minute Maid Park. So I'm closer to Sugarland than I am to Minute Maid. So it's cool when we get to see guys come up. We get to go check them out. Verlander looked really good. The debate now is, does he do another rehab start or does he throw a bullpen and it feels really good and then he just sticks with the team? Some people think that may be the case. Either way, getting Justin Verlander back in this rotation to be able to now run out a 6-man rotation will be so critical for this ball club because we've got a ton of young arms that are logging innings that they've never logged before. Ronel Blanco, who was arguably our ace up until recently because of fatigue, I think, should have been an all-star, got snubbed, is already blown through his innings limit. Hunter Brown, who is really coming into his own. This is the year where he's starting to really blossom. He's probably going to blow through his innings limit. Spencer Arrighetti, another good young arm that they brought up this year, he's probably going to blow through his innings. So for the Astros, being able to get another arm on top of the one they went out and traded for is going to be so critical for them down the stretch, just to give some of these younger guys a chance to not damage their arms, elbows, shoulders, whatever, and keep them fresh for the postseason.
Yeah. So with that and acquiring these arms that you desperately need, we are just a few weeks out, obviously, from the trade deadline. So did you have any thoughts on, kind of what the Astros did, what might have been missed? I mean, how do you feel overall about the trade deadline now?
So it's really interesting that you got me instead of Susie, because Susie has a totally different view of the trade deadline than I do. Me and Susie totally disagree on how that all went down. Yusei Kikuchi was acquired by the Astros from the Toronto Blue Jays for 3 prospects. Mm-hmm. I say it like that not because I don't know their names, because I do, and I loved all 3 of those prospects, but because that's how MLB reported it. 3 prospects. To the point when we did on our podcast, when we did our post-trade season breakdown, who won, who lost, every other trade that was announced had the players, minor league, major league, whatever, had the player's name. The Astros trade was the only one that named 3 players. And that's how they presented. So it was like almost disrespectful to those 3 guys.
Yeah.
And I really feel bad for them because in Joey Loperfido, Jake Bloss, and Will Wagner, I don't believe you've heard the last of those 3 names. I truly believe that Toronto loves what they got. They did a phenomenal job. After that trade, I felt like we were absolutely overpaying for Yusei Kikuchi, who is a rental, which a lot of people in Houston are like, look, parade's over prospects. I'll get over the prospects. Just give me the parade. And that was the prevailing thought from this trade. But for myself, these were some really, really good prospects. And I felt like 3, 4, 5 years from now, we could be talking about this trade totally differently. Yes, the Astros made a postseason run, but now Toronto is going to be in a position to really blossom because they got a 23-year-old rookie in Jake Bloss who skipped AAA altogether, threw a no-hitter in AA. You got Joey Loperfido, who's a highlight reel on defense with some pop, and Will Wagner was 5 for 6 with 2 doubles in his first 6 ABs for Toronto, just absolutely lighting it up at every level in minor league baseball, and then lit it up for Toronto as soon as he came up. I really think Toronto did a fantastic job. And while Yusei has pitched really, really well, I've had this conversation on Twitter a couple different times with people where they're going, look at Yusei. I'm like, look, I understand. He beat a bad Tampa Bay team twice, and he beat another bad team. And I just don't necessarily, I'm not enamored with anything that he's done yet. When he beats a good club, I'll be more than happy to go, man, Yusei Kikuchi's figured it out. He's not a dude that was 4-9 with a almost 5 ERA. So that's, for me, that was the big thing of the trade deadline. I thought there was another pitcher they could go get that was cheaper. Mm-hmm. I thought we overpaid for the guy we got. And I wish that it would have been, at least one of those prospects would have stuck around. Other than that, I think they did a good job.
Yeah. That's fair. And so she has the opposite feelings on this apparently. Wow. Well, that's fun. I'll have to ask her about that myself. Well, we'll take a very quick break just to pay some bills, and we'll come back and talk about what the series might look like. So we'll be right back. And we're back from a commercial break. So I was looking at the pitching matchups, and they're quite interesting because I don't. Well, there's one thing about the White Sox right now is that Garrett Crochet is even kind of slumping. But I was looking at, ERAs and their wins and whatnot, and this is just a very oddly matched series. So our first game Friday, probably when you guys are listening to this, we do have Garrett Crochet against Spencer Arrighetti, who, they have similar ERAs right now. Chris Flexen, who's been really bad, really, really bad against Hunter Brown, and then Kai Bush, who is brand new against Framber Valdez. So I knew going in the White Sox were going to be set up for failure in this series, personally, with pitching. But what can you tell me about, Spencer and Hunter and then Framber Valdez that people might not expect to hear?
Well, I can tell you tons, and I will, but I have a question for you, actually. I would love to know, and we talked about it, in our show. What do you feel about the way the whole Garrett Crochet thing went down? I've got to know from a White Sox fan, are you okay with this? Are you upset by this? Because Garrett Crochet could have netted y'all all the prospects in the world.
Yeah.
And had he not went out and said, I need to be paid before I will pitch for somebody, it probably would have happened. I think there wasn't a scenario where you guys weren't looking to trade him, but the fact that he drove his own price down, are the fans upset? Is this like I need him off my club for that? I'm just curious how you feel.
I think a lot of people are really split on this because there's part of me that kind of says, good for him for coming out, giving his demand, saying, this is what I want. I do not want to go back to the bullpen. I've started for, almost a whole season at this point. And he has been great up until, like I said, this past few games have been really rocky for him. And, kind of saying, I want to be paid. I don't want to go back to the bullpen. I would love to see the postseason kind of thing. I think that part is great. I think how it came out and how his team kind of worded it was very poor, to the point where I don't think a lot of people understood why it even came out that way. And I do think it could have harmed the White Sox in the long run with prospects. But on kind of the flip side of that, we have a lot of really great young pitchers coming in right now. Like I said, Kai Bush is really new, but he is looking good. Jonathan Cannon, brand new, has been looking great. Chris Flexen's not new. He's not good. But, we've seen these younger pitchers that have been coming in and finally kind of showing signs of life that we've desperately needed. So at that point, I don't know how big of a get Garrett Crochet would have been, honestly. And that's with all respect and love for Garrett Crochet. But yeah, I think a lot of people are just completely split on this. And I'm kind of fine because I didn't want him to go anywhere just in case, because when you're one of the only good pitchers on the team, you've got to make your season a little bit more bearable. He's like the best player on the team right now, and that's including everyone. Luis Robert Jr. awful right now, awful, and he's like our franchise guy. So I was kind of okay with it selfishly. I think a lot of other people are really pissed because they would have preferred something come in for that. Because again, like you said, he could have brought in a ton of good prospects, or at least some really good money that is not going to be spent. But yeah, I'm personally okay with it though.
Well, I think that's great. I know he's super young, and I hope y'all keep him, because at this point it makes more sense to keep him. Mm-hmm. It was just at the time, being the seller's market that it was, you just felt like every pitcher that you could part with was going to net you top quality talent. Mm-hmm. And It was a head scratcher for a lot of people. People thought for sure that Garrett Crochet was going to be a name that got dealt, and it didn't happen. And I think it was much about what he said,
Yeah.
more than other teams not calling. I believe the Astros called on Crochet as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a rumor. Yeah.
As far as your question about the pitching staff for the Astros, it's been a really fun couple weeks with these young guys.
Mm-hmm.
Spencer Arrighetti comes up and known as a strikeout guy, had trouble, filling up the zone and not getting lit up. And now recently he's just totally turned it on, totally changed up the way he's attacking some hitters, and he's had some big strikeout numbers. And it's weird because they go back and back to back in the rotation. Him and Hunter Brown have almost kind of competed a little bit. Spencer will put up a number, and Hunter's going to go out there and try to beat that number. And for an Astros fan, it's really fun because you're seeing really top level pitching, and these guys are very, very young. Spencer Arrighetti's 24 years old. Hunter Brown's 25. In the world of arms right now, when you look at Justin Verlander, who I talked about, who's 41, those guys are babies. So for them to be out there dealing this young, as an Astros fan, selfishly, you're just so excited because that's the future of your rotation right there. And oh, by the way, Framber's not terribly toast either. I think he's either 29 or 30. I'm struggling with his age right now. He's been really rock solid over the last 6 starts, where early in the season he got lit up a couple times. And then here in Houston, when we watch Framber's a little bit of a head case. If you watch him, he's got some ticks. He's got some faces he makes. He's never really looks like he's comfortable on the mound. So we don't know if he's going to get wild Framber or be calm and collected Framber. When he's under control, the dude is electric, one of the best lefties in baseball. He flirted with a no-hitter a couple weeks ago. He went deep into a game, shut out his last time out. So this rotation, which again we spoke to earlier, had so much chaos, is really starting to be the backbone of this team.
I had to look up his age. He's 30, but as I was scrolling through, I love the kind of prompted questions you get, because one of them is just says, "What happened to Farmer Valdez?" I'm not sure who Farmer is, but I hope he's doing okay. Yeah, he's always been one that's been so interesting to watch, because you make a great point. You don't know which one you're going to get each time, but even if you get kind of a more wild one, he still can just have a very quality outing no matter what he's doing. And I think that's kind of what's so scary about him right now, is that he could be bad, but the White Sox can make a pitcher look like a Cy Young candidate most games, with the exception of this out of the blue Yankees game that we just had 12-2, which I would just like to put out that I actually called that was going to happen on a podcast. I said that Cubs will sweep and they will steal one rogue game from these Yankees. So thank you to that. But yeah, that's a great point with him. And then with that, and it kind of ties into what your pitching looks like, which player on this Astros team might be the biggest threat to the White Sox in this series?
It's really, really hard for me not to say Alex Bregman right now. He's probably the hottest hitter on the baseball team. He had four homers in 4 days. The dude is absolutely locked in. His outs are loud. Everything he hits hard. You obviously can't sleep on Yordan Alvarez. The big man is probably the most polished hitter of the group. Dude hits to all fields. Crazy, crazy power. Yainer Diaz is another guy that hits right behind those two, that while he's super young, his plate discipline has dramatically improved to where he was striking out a ton last year. And now you just see this guy patient, taking his walks. And those right there. I mean, there's this dude, Jose Altuve. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's there too. But I really want to highlight the other guys.
Yeah.
Because those guys have been really carrying the load for the last couple of weeks.
Well, Altuve will get booed no matter what. It's one of those things. It's the same with Javi Baez. He hasn't been on the Cubs for millions of years now, and he still gets booed when the Tigers come to town. It's just wild. But Grudges. I mean, grudges do not just die off. They're pretty funny, honestly. So these questions I've mentioned before, they feel like almost as a joke right now, but last episode I did just do for the Yankees, and I talked to Emily and I said, what are the keys for them to win the series? And I was like, the White Sox are terrible, and then the first game there's like a weird explosion of offense. So what are the keys this time for the Astros to take this series?
For me, it has to be for the Astros not to take their foot off the gas. They have a tendency to play down to lower talent. It drives Astros fans insane. The Oakland A's have been in our division and beaten us up for years and years and haven't been good. And it's like they almost feel like the name on the jersey should win them the game. Right. And I really hope they don't do that with the White Sox, because there is enough talent on this baseball team that when the stars align, you get a 12-2, just like they did against New York. And I'm really kind of thrilled as an Astros fan that happened, so they saw it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they're like, well, that could happen if we're not careful. And hopefully, we get a team that's really focused and goes out and win a series. I tell everybody sweeps are hard.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a game where something doesn't go right. An umpire is just not good. A ball hits a bag or something. Sweeps are hard. But to win the series should be the goal for the Astros. There are going to be fans in Houston that are going to lose their minds if the White Sox win a game. And they shouldn't, because it's Major League Baseball. You can win on any day.
Yeah.
But I can tell you from experience, our fan base on social media will be out in full force if Crochet spins a gem, Louis Robert goes into the Crawford boxes, and you guys win a game in Minute Maid.
Yeah, I follow enough Astros fans to see these meltdowns when they do occur, just like I follow enough Yankees fans. They were losing their mind. So yeah, and I've gotten to the point on, social media, especially on Twitter, where I just laugh things off, because this team is just so historically bad this year that you have to find some humor in watching these games. And I still watch almost every single one of these games. I actually will be missing my normal Friday coverage night, thankfully, and Saturday. I won't see either one of those games. I have plans. I have better things to do. But I sit here and I watch all these games, and I'm tweeting out during the entire game, and it's just one of those things where it's just like, LOL, that is so White Sox. That is my typical tweet during these games. But yeah, then I see other fan bases just like melting down. And I'm like, guys, it's just the White Sox. Like, it's going to be okay. You're going to come back tomorrow and win by 15. Like, they're going to consider a mercy rule in baseball. It's okay. It's really okay. So with that, and you mentioned not stepping off the brakes, or not stepping on the brakes, are there any fears that you do have actually going into this series with this team?
I mean, obviously, you really don't want anybody to get injured at this point. That's like the big thing. In the game last night, Ronel Blanco took a comebacker that like ricocheted off his hand. Ooh. Just pitched 6 innings, pitched great. Astros won a nail biter, but there was a genuine concern that he might have got hurt. For me, injury right now is like probably the scariest thing. I can lose a baseball game. I can lose a series, and okay, Stros will get right. We'll figure it out. We'll win the next one, something like that. An injury, though, somebody getting hurt for the season, weeks, months, that's probably more detrimental for me. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, of course. Injuries are scary. We haven't seen Yohan Moncada since like April. He's still, who honestly knows what's actually going on with him, but he's just not ready. And we never really saw much of Eloy Jimenez when he did come back from injury, and now he's in Baltimore. Luis Robert injured at the beginning of the season, and he's had a terrible, terrible season. So yeah, those injuries are scary, especially when it happens to the better players on your team. I feel like the White Sox are plagued with them, but then I look around and every team, especially pitching this season, that's been a big thing. Every pitcher is going down, and I'm just like, is this a pitch clock thing? Is this just they're exhausted, they're overextended. Like, what is happening? Are we stretching? Do we need to implement like mandatory yoga before games? Like, what is happening to all these players this year? Because it does seem like there's been a huge uptick in the last 2 seasons, but it's brutal. I feel, yeah, there was, I can't remember who it was now, but yeah, there was a White Sox player that went out, a relief pitcher that went out last night during the game. And I'm like, oh, we don't have a bullpen as is right now, guys. What are we doing here?
I think everyone needs to do whatever Paul Skeens does before he starts. Because he's got like a whole regiment thing, and it's like the dude throws 1,000,000 miles an hour, and he's really, really good. I want everybody to do what he's doing.
He's fantastic. I got to see him right before he got the call up to Pittsburgh because I am part-time in Indy, and their farm team for Pittsburgh is in Indy. So it's really fun that I get to see a lot of these players. So that's why I kind of have a weird soft spot for the Pirates, because I've watched so many of their prospects come up, and Andrew McCutchen is my all-time favorite player, probably for that very reason. I've been watching him since, I mean, we're the same age. I've been watching him since he was in his 20s. But yeah, Paul Skeens, you mentioned him. He's just absolutely insane, and he's a baby. So I can't wait to see what his actual future looks like. I mean, to be pulled and to get to start for the All-Star game in your rookie year. Gosh, yeah. I saw him. I missed his day when I took my son to a Brewers Pirates game, and I missed him by a day, but he was still out there on the field kind of while they were doing batting practice and warm-ups and stuff, and just kind of watching him interact with people. And, you know, anytime a ball would come his way, he would look up and he'd start throwing it out, because we were sitting right by the Pirates bullpen, which was fun. And just seeing him, and he's so ginormous too. That's the other thing I don't think people realize. That man is massive. But man, he's going to be so much fun to watch.
I really hope the Pirates do the right thing and like build around him. You see some of these great players come up with these teams, Bryce Harper in Washington or Mike Trout in Los Angeles, and they never get it right. And that person never gets to the biggest stages. And for me, I hope Paul Skeens is in that conversation on the NL side, of course, so we don't have to see him. But I hope he's there.
You mentioned Mike Trout, and I do want to mention that because the Angels are in the same division. What are your thoughts on him right now? Because he's out. I don't know the last time he's had a full healthy season, and he's supposed to be like the best in baseball. How do you feel about all of this right now?
It's tough. It's so tough. And I can't imagine being an Angels fan, because it's got to be the most frustrating thing ever. Here you have this generational talent who's won multiple MVPs, considered one of the best guys in baseball, plays a premium position, and you can't get it right. Like, they went out and spent money. I can't say they didn't spend money. And you're watching him start to erode. And it's like, okay, now what do? Do you try to make this thing work? Do you try to move on from him and just look, I need to start over? Because he's owed a ton of money. And I feel like the Angels are just in purgatory. Now, as an Astros fan, selfishly, they can stay there because that's good for me. That's one less team I got to worry about. But it's tough as a baseball fan going, okay, Mike Trout needs to be a part of bigger stuff. When we got the World Baseball Classic and you got Ohtani versus Trout, you need things like that. You need Trout against Skeens in a game that matters.
Yeah.
And right now we're just missing that.
You also, it's funny, your division has a ton of these great players that have been so injured, because you've got Jacob deGrom, you know, kind of almost under you. I mean, a little under you right now, who they expect to actually have playing again this year. And he's another one of those, you know, that have always had this conversation of greatest pitcher in baseball. He's phenomenal, you know, and he's been out, but now he's facing live hitters again. He's about to rehab again. So how do you think that's going to go for him when he is able to come back and he is able to face major league batters again, because he's always in that conversation of guys that should be playing and are so good for baseball and so fun to watch, but you're constantly being robbed of watching him.
I believe as we sit right now, the Texas Rangers are 9.5 games back. If I am a Ranger fan, or if I am in a Ranger clubhouse, I am kid gloves that guy. As much as we want to see him, as much as you want to get him back on the mound, I probably need to slowly build this guy up and just protect him at all costs. Because I imagine at this point, I mean, obviously the season's not over, anything can happen. But I feel like at this point, the writing's kind of on the wall for anybody that's 9+ games out of anything. It's going to be really tough. It's a really big climb to make, and not a lot of time to do it. So for the Rangers, you probably go, okay, we need to get Scherzer right. We need to get deGrom right. We need to get Gray right. They've got tons of pitching that's banged up too. And it's really kind of speaks to why they were so good last year and so bad this year. So I hope they do the right thing, whatever that is for him, and just make sure that the following season you get the best version of Jacob deGrom. And hopefully it'll be for another ball club that's not Texas, because we play them a ton.
Yeah. He's always been one of my favorites too, just because I watched a ton of Mets games anyway. And losing him when he was on the Mets, I was like, well, this is a huge bummer. But at the same time, I don't remember the last time I watched this kid pitch. And I love him, and it's painful. We're also birthday buddies. Shout out to him. But yeah, I agree with the kids club thing, and I really worry that they're gonna still rush him and just end his career, because I feel like as much as these injuries pile up, he's not going to be able to be that Jacob deGrom that we saw years back, who was just lights out, incredible. But crazier things have happened, because then you think of someone like Chris Sale, who continuously gets injured and has been lights out in Atlanta. So just wild.
It's baseball.
Yeah.
They have the ladies that do the all the balls edition of our podcast, Susie and struggling with her name right now. I don't know why. Anyway, they have a saying: "This baseball is baseballing," and that's Kelsey. I'm so sorry, Kelsey. I apologize if you're watching this. Susie and Kelsey, yes, they say that all the time, and for me, that perfectly describes what you just said.
Yeah, it's such a crazy, weird sport where just anything can ever happen. So before we wrap this up, this is obviously, we kind of jumped into it early, but this is where I love to talk about any hot takes or just thoughts on baseball in general this season. How's it going?
It's been a wild ride. I mean, the Astros, like we talked about, have come from the depths of 12-24 to 10 games over 500, which nobody thought they would ever even dream of being at. So I'm really, as an Astro fan, we're enjoying this sweet spot that we're in. The schedule is kind of broken for us the right way too. As far as hot takes, I'm really interested what happens in the AL East. You got Baltimore and the Yankees pretty much going tit for tat. I'm sure Baltimore really appreciates the Chicago White Sox for all their efforts the other day. As an Astros fan, I don't necessarily love the Yankees and their, we created baseball, we're better than everybody stuff that they do. So, if they struggle with Baltimore and end up a wild card or something like that, I'm probably not going to be hurt by it. I'm probably going to appreciate it. Another hot take, the Dodgers. The Dodgers are an amazing story in the sense that they could win all the games and get knocked out first round of the playoffs because they just don't have any pitching.
Yeah.
They just lost another young pitcher to Tommy John, River Ryan, who looked really promising. And I don't know what they're going to do for pitching. As good as that lineup is, as many studs as they have, with Mookie and Ohtani and Freeman, I don't know if you have a night where they're not hitting, they're going to lose ball games. I can't see their rotation not giving up runs. Are the Guardians for real? Are the Gardos real? I don't know. Cleveland's a weird story.
I think the Guardians are real. Although I wanted to go back right before that with the Dodgers. I had the exact same thoughts at the beginning of this year because you see it happen with the Mets. The Mets have this billionaire owner that can pay for top tier talents, but they can still fall completely off that pedestal at any point in time. And I've been seeing that with the Dodgers. And I also said another thing with all of these superstars on your team, how are you going to gel? How are you going to handle those egos? Not saying that any of the players have bad egos or are bad people, but just that's a lot to harness in and really just kind of get on the same page. And people keep putting the Dodgers in their World Series picks, and I'm just like, but are you sure that that's going to be the case? Because I don't see it happening personally. And back to the Guardians, unfortunately, I think they really are real. And I have bonded with this is the wild part. I've bonded with like Twins fans about this. And, Twins fans are like, if you could just put them, a game, like just beat them in one game, and you have like our unwavering devotion and love, because they're a scary team. And I don't know what caused this to happen from last year to now, but they're the team to beat. They're scary.
I really think you talked about it. I really think it's just they gelled. Mm-hmm. That's a club with, they've got stars, but their rotation, which, coming into the season, you thought, okay, Shane Bieber and co. And then Shane Bieber goes down, you're like,
and Tristan McKenzie too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, they've really just pieced it together. They've got a bona fide stud at closer in Emmanuel Clase. Yeah. And it's weird. Their lineup, when you look at their lineup, you're like, okay, we know J-Ram. We know what he can do. Stephen Kwan, we've heard of your game, sir. But the rest of those guys, they just kind of sneak up on you. And I don't know what the playoffs are going to look like, but that's a team that I'm like circling. Like, if we don't have to face those guys, I'm okay with that.
Right. Yeah. I hate facing them just in the regular season, knowing my team is not going to win any games. They are scary good. And I did not see that happen, at least not as fast. I knew that they were going to be a team to beat. I did not think they were going to be this brutal this year. I thought maybe great team, maybe they don't make the playoffs. Maybe it's like a constant battle between the Twins and the Guardians this year. But when Twins fans are terrified of them and don't want to face them, I'm like, oh, okay, we've got issues with this team. They're too good. And, as a White Sox fan, we kind of hate the Guardians anyway. There's the whole down goes Anderson thing from a few years ago that was not a fun time in Chicago. That's for sure. And now Tim's not even playing baseball. They've always been that team where we've just hated facing them because they're cocky, but they have every right to be cocky, unfortunately. And I try to express that to other White Sox fans of, you know what, it's fine. Like, you've just got to accept it. They're good, and they're going to be good, I think, for a while, because they have enough talent to really maintain their spot. It'll be interesting. It'll be really, I think the American League is going to be an incredibly interesting race to the finish, because it really is anyone's game right now. It's anyone's to grab, which is a little scary to think about.
For me, selfishly, as an Astros fan, I love that, because where they were as to where they are now, you're like, I want just a seat at the table and see what happens, because they've been through it so many times. So it's like, it won't seem new, where if you get a Baltimore team, the lights may get a little bright in the postseason. A Guardians team, although I don't believe it, the lights could get bright in the postseason. For me, seeing the Yankees kind of be like, they're really Judge and Soto, and that's it.
Yeah.
You kind of like that. You feel like, hey, if you just don't you respect those guys, work around those guys, you can really beat the rest of them. I mean, like Chicago proved the other day.
Mhm.
And so the postseason is going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be some weird scores. I think there's going to be some games that you're going to watch and you're just going to be like, wow, I did not have that on my bingo card.
Right. I think that's this year in general with baseball. It's just that phrase being uttered multiple times that you did not have that on your bingo card because it's been nothing that I've expected for sure. But that's the fun in it, I suppose. Unless you're a White Sox fan, then that's the fun in it.
Well, listen, I want to commend you. I want to commend you because there was a time. There are Astros fans that did not live through this time.
Yeah.
There was a time when the Astros had 300 game losing seasons back to back to back. So we've been there. It is not fun. It is ugly. You watch the veterans get shipped out. You watch young guys get recycled, and you're rudderless. So, but I say that to say that it can change. The right manager, you get a couple guys to buy in, some young guys, make a couple of good trades where you pull some really good prospects back, and then all of a sudden you're in a position where we're good again. So I think that can happen in Chicago, and I think y'all have one of the best City Connect jerseys. So it needs to happen. So we see it more.
It's funny you see that because I do feel like they have started to right the ship. Obviously, firing Pedro was a great call because even though they've only won one game since that happened, they've been a different team. They were actually awake during the Crosstown series. They kept those games really competitive against the Cubs. They were competitive against the Yankees until, last night's game was kind of a bummer, but they were keeping it close, and then they went off offensively during one of those games, which is really fun to see. And they do have those young guys that are kind of buying in. Like I said, they've got Jonathan Cannon, they've got Kai Busch, they've got Drew Thorpe, who's injured right now, but has been what I will continue to say is like the second coming of Dylan Cease. Like when I see Drew Thorpe, I see this is what Dylan Cease was at the beginning, when you were still a little frustrated with him, but you knew there was something more to him. So I mean, they do have these young guys, and I don't know who is actually going to manage this team next year, but the Grady Sizemore era has been fun baseball to watch. At least it's not miserable games every single night like it was with Pedro or Tony La Russa or any of those, geriatric managers from the past. So yeah, and they do. I do feel like they're riding the ship, and maybe 2028 is going to be a lot of fun.
That's how you got to do it. I mean, it sounds far away, and then you get a couple seasons where the stuff starts trending in the right direction, and you're flirting with wild card, and then all of a sudden you're a contender. And with the young talent, that's the hardest thing to acquire and to cultivate. And then you add the big prizes after the fact. So, I mean, from personal experience, watching the Astros kind of come up where they brought Tuve and brought Bregman and brought Correa and brought Springer, and then just little by little by little. I mean, there's a lot in that as a fan, the personal satisfaction of going, I was with them when they were trash, and now I'm right here when they're great.
Yep, that's true. It's been a rough few seasons with this team, but hey, they're gonna, at one point, while I'm still alive, maybe make a playoff push. We'll see. That's what I have for you. So unless you have any other fun thoughts, please just remind people again where they can find you and your lovely cohort Susie on your podcast.
I've got to ask your opinion.
Yeah.
And only because I don't know. I need Chicago pizza. I need to know what I need to know for Chicago pizza.
Okay.
And I'm a big foodie guy. I probably don't look it, but I eat my weight easy. So if there is a Chicago food thing I need to get my hands on, I need to know what that is.
Okay.
And then we'll talk bourbon and baseball after.
I will say everyone, and they're kind of right, the deep dish pizza are more touristy things. Not that it's bad. Every once in a while I'll be like, man, I could go for like Illuminati's. I could go for a big deep dish pizza. But tavern style is where it really is in Chicago. Tavern style is so much better. Again, you can get into so many arguments about who has it the best. I will say Pequod's. So if you're in Chicago, go to Pequod's and get their pizza. That's my personal favorite. And obviously, you know, the Chicago dog is, there's a whole reason why that's so historic. We have an independent baseball league called the Chicago Dogs right now, based off of the hot dog. So Chicago is full of this like iconic, really fun food. We've also got, and I don't know if you remember, I don't want to age you, but the SNL skits with the Billy Goat Tavern and the cheeseburger and all that, like that's in Chicago. We have all of this cool, iconic food and culture. So like this, it's a city that you want to come and just bring your sweatpants, bring some extra cash. And
forget your diet. Don't even think about that bad boy.
Pretend you're not on a diet for a week, because, you know, we've got like Super Dog, again, kind of touristy, but still really fun. They've got, you know, the Chicago Dogs, but then you've got places like Gene and Jude's. That's, you know, all over the place. There's a hot dog stand really close to Guaranteed Rate, actually, that every single time I pass it leaving the stadium, there's just this massive line out the door to just get a hot dog, and they're open like forever. But yeah, again, with the pizza, just try tavern style and it'll kind of change your life. It's better than New York pizza. I will be the first to say that. And I love New York style pizza, but Chicago tavern style is the best of the best.
Okay. I will definitely add that to the list of things. As far as our podcast, Bourbon and Baseball, it's Astros themed when you see me. It's all the balls or the entire MLB when you get Susie and Kelsey. We're a lot of fun. The ladies are fantastic. Ball knowers, as they call themselves, which, you know, I love that too. So if you are not doing the White Sox stuff and want to come check us out, please do. You can find us on wherever you get your podcasts. The YouTube channel is there. If you want to see us, obviously, if you just want to listen to the podcast, you can do that. On Twitter, I'm Third Coast Tom. That's where I do the most of my shenanigans. I do dabble on Instagram. I'm TC Tom1 there. Another something that we do that I don't know if you're familiar with, that I think is interesting for fans of any sport or any area, is the PSF app. It is a new thing that you can go download, where you download your apps or whatever. And basically it's watching a game, whatever kind of game, with media casters that are basically, you know, it's like instead of going to the bar where you have to worry about, all right, I'm going to get a drink, I got to Uber home, I got to Uber back. Is this bum going to hit on me? I don't really want that. You can be on the PSF app with media casters and a bunch of your friends in the chat room, talking baseball, talking smack. It's kind of the way to, like, you know how some people live tweet games?
Yeah.
It's kind of the way to do that with these people in a chat room, where you have your media casters that can bring you up and you can be vocal. You can use the camera. It's all from the comfort of your phone, all from the comfort of wherever you want to be. It can be your home. It can be the garage. It can be wherever. So I think that it's a real unique niche type thing. They've also got a peer-to-peer wagering system where you can kind of put your money where your mouth is. If I feel like Jose Altuve is going to strike out more than Luis Robert, I can challenge you on that on the PSF app. I probably should lose that because I don't need Jose Altuve to strike out that much, but that's a legit wager that we could have for $1, $5, $10, whatever you want to make it. And it's just a lot of fun. The PSF app is something that's new. It's really exciting. And I invite everyone to come check it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for plugging the ladies too. That always means a lot to us. That's what I love about this podcast too, because I personally love to go check other teams out before games to hear what they are saying, you know, about their own team. So that's kind of why I love doing this, because now I can just get all of that intel to White Sox fans that might not do that. But again, with the ladies, I do 3 different podcasts, and all of them are women led. So it's a lot of fun. But again, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. Obviously, best of luck. I look forward to your shenanigans on Twitter during this series, because even though I'm not going to be watching 2 of those games, I will absolutely still be checking Twitter. It's honestly like a disease at this point. So, but yeah, best of luck. And again, thank you so much. And please be sure to go check out everything you just heard, because I know Susie's wonderful. I've been following her for a while, so I'm excited that you guys could do this. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.